what's it been like to be able to get back on the road and connect with them? Because I know HTSN Summit wasn't your first, go around for events since the turn of the calendar, but what's it been like to get back face to face with your people?
I went to Nationwide and was there and had a whole new world open to me when it comes to appliances, luxury appliances, and the whole retail side. But this kind of felt like coming home. But it was wonderful to meet the HTSN integrators. We saw some really great stuff. I heard even better things happening at these tables, collaborations and networkings, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. We are fresh off of the HTSN CI Summit, which took place last week. If you're listening to this on drop day, it took place last week. It was April 6th through 8th, out down in Dallas, Texas, at the Gaylord Texan down there. And a great opportunity, one that was a couple of years in the making, pushed back a couple of times because of a little pandemic and some other scheduling snafus and things that just didn't allow us to have the event until, this past week. So finally got the chance to do it, and it was, to say, a fun and eventful and educational time. You can use all the adjectives to describe that event. They'd all be an understatement. And it's just awesome to be able to finally get together with those members, our HTSN custom integrators, and the vendor partners that were there to support them. And of course, press as well. We had Vanessa Zitzmann from Connected Design down there with us to, experience the event. And happy to, just a couple days after getting home, have Vanessa on the podcast to just recount her experience, what it was like for her to be there. Someone who's very familiar with the industry and has been there on the distribution and vendor side of the business, and just kind of recap what she got out of it, what her big takeaways were from the summit, and what she sort of looked at kind of moving forward here too as well. Talking about some trends and things that they're covering on the connected design side, and just fun to catch up with. It was great to see her down there in Dallas, and give her that opportunity to see the interactions happen between vendors and members, and and then take the time to follow up after the words as well. So let's just dive into it. This is Vanessa Zitzmann of Connected Design here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we're back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and I feel like we just saw each other, Vanessa. I don't know.
It's like I blinked and you're here again. I'm not sure what's happening.
Well, Vanessa Zitzmann, I appreciate you taking the time. A senior managing editor over at Dealerscope / Connected Design, talking more on the connected design side today. Appreciate you on a whim coming on and deciding that you'd like to do a podcast to start your Monday morning with us. So
absolutely. I woke up like this. So I was ready in a second to be podcasted and on video. I was just ready.
Well, more power to you, because I needed to get myself together this morning, but it's all right. So we absolutely. Well, like I said, appreciate it. And I know I say that more so today because I know you were traveling with us last week at the HTSN CI Summit down there in Dallas. So before we dive into that, though, it's kind of fun because I know this space, the integrators are your people, right? So yes. What's it been like, to be able to get back on the road and connect with them? Because I know HTSN Summit wasn't your first, go around for events since the turn of the calendar, but what's it been like to get back face to face with your people?
It's really nice, and it's funny that you say that because I walked in and I happened to be standing next to Randy. And I was like, Randy, these are my people. And he goes, I know, Vanessa, you told me last time. I was like, okay, you and I are going to have to come up with some new material. But to be honest, it is wonderful. I went to Nationwide and was there and had a whole new world open to me when it comes to appliances, luxury appliances, and the whole retail side. But this kind of felt like coming home because I knew all the vendors. I knew most of the people, but it was wonderful to meet the HTSN integrators and how they do things just a little bit different than maybe the standard integrator within what I traditionally would call my sector of the industry. So it was wonderful. And we saw some really great stuff. I heard even better things happening at these tables, collaborations and networkings. And I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun.
Talk about the difference. I obviously a full on integrator. I mean, what comes to mind is someone that, their business is out doing projects regularly. So talk about that difference and kind of what you're learning about, an HTSN integrator as opposed to say an Azure integrator.
So well, there's not as big of a difference as I would have thought. So I come into Nationwide not having a huge amount of understanding outside of what I've learned on your website and through Tony Monteleone and CT Lab. So I was curious as to what the HTSN integrator was. Believe it or not, more of the Azure dealers, your traditional integrator, they do have showrooms. Then now they might not have consumers coming in as far as like picking up one piece and buying it and then going about. But their showrooms are definitely for showcasing what they can do in your home. And from what I was taught when I was talking to the HTSN members that were there, they're kind of doing the same thing. I sat with a gentleman who was really excited to put a new theater and needed some blackout curtains in his home theater or in the theater for his showroom. And, really there isn't a huge amount of difference, except maybe the Azure dealers might be a little more involved in all of the home automation type of stuff. That seems like that was more of the difference to me.
What other, I mean, that's obviously, it's cool because you get to kind of see with the HTSN side, that mix of, it's almost like the perfect cross section of what really I would like connected design and dealer scope, just the way they operate. So having been on that side, it's neat to kind of see it.
Of the two.
Exactly.
It really was.
Yeah. So I mean, aside from, the showrooms, are there big differences in terms of, how they talk about the integration side? Do they come at it from a different perspective, or do you think they're sort of the same mindset and sort of how they approach the business?
I think they come from the same mindset, as in how they want to help the homeowner. So again, the Azure dealer might be a little more specific, might have a slightly larger frame of reference for the integrated home. But, now that I'm thinking about it, that's even hard to say for the HTSN dealers that I talked to who were running these gigantic integration companies that just happen to have the retail on the side. So to me, they fit into what like Best Buy used to have. I don't know if they still do, Magnolia, which was like the integration within the store. Whereas, we don't have that on the traditional integration side. HTSN members have that, but it seems like still the integration is still the bigger part. So, I think that there's a lot more in common there than I think that they both realize.
No, that's of course, I think cool to hear, coming to it.
Yeah.
From
now that I've seen both sides, I've been to the Azure conference and I've been to your conferences, and I really think that there is more in common there than I think.
It's awesome to hear. So what was your biggest takeaway? Maybe it was that, but aside from that, if you had a point two, what was your biggest takeaway from being at HTSN CI Summit?
So there's always a couple takeaways that I get. The first thing that I always take away from any type of nationwide event, and this was my first HTSN Summit, was the amount of care put into what is happening, whether it's the talks, who's speaking, when they're speaking, the time, the gifts, the giveaways. Everything is truly done for the love, and I get this every time, truly done for the love of the member, wanting the members to succeed. So anytime I sit down with Randy, that's all I get is, we want to see our members succeed. And it's kind of an unusual thing to hear that as the first thing. It's never, okay, this is the bottom line and this, that, and the other thing. And it's the overall feeling is, we want to help. And so that's always the first takeaway I get. The second takeaway for this was, well, we had the speed dating, so to speak, the speed meetings, which I always get. They always crack me up because you got to give your elevator pitch quick, fast. I've been a manufacturer. I've been in those places. So it's always fun to see other people do that. But the other thing I really took away was knowledge that we want to help you guys learn who these people are, reconnect you to these vendors. And, sometimes, especially if you're not even a newer integrator, but you get so caught up by all the stuff that's going on, and the one product, let's say it doesn't want to work, or you don't have time to learn it, and you don't want to call the rep who then calls the other rep before you get an answer, or you don't want to spend an hour on the phone with tech support. One of the great things about this event is it connects your dealer, your member, directly to somebody from a company so that you have a quick reference. And you can sit right in front of them and be like, oh, hey, that thing, it didn't work. And the guy says, oh, all you got to do is hit the button and then do this, that, and the other. And then it's like the light turns on. And then it's like they've totally re-understood the function of this product. And it's always really, and I saw that happening a lot at the conference because I went around and pretended to I was taking pictures, but I was eavesdropping. You know how I do.
Absolutely.
But it's just interesting to have seen that happen several times, especially at the Samsung Learning Center.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that because I go back to kind of the original first question we had here about just being back in person and reconnecting. That's, I think, attending Primetime and being at Summit, and I know we just had the ASEAN conference not long ago. The one thing that I keep hearing is just that, yes, we appreciated the ability to still connect and have these virtual type conferences during the past couple of years, but stuff like that, like those little one-off questions like, hey, this isn't working, and just being able to say that in front of an open room,
right?
Or directly to the vendor partner that you're talking about the product to, that kind of stuff. Maybe you drop it in a chat and someone knows the answer, but to be able to see those interactions and those light bulbs go off in the room at the same time, that's what was missing. And that, I mean, you could talk to anyone about it. I think that the real value of those in-person events and being able to be in a room with all the like-minded individuals, that's where it kind of shows through and shows what we were missing.
Absolutely. And there's also something to be said for the networking that happens after we're all out of the convention center that we're at, or when we're away from the meeting room, when we are doing something, when we're sitting on the bus on the way to somewhere, or when you're having drinks at the hotel after everything is over. The connections that are also made there are vitally important. And because everybody's kind of with their hair down, they're relaxed, and they'll even ask more questions that they didn't feel comfortable asking otherwise. And then, that's a lot of wheeling and dealing and happens afterwards. And you guys made that extremely easy with the axe throwing and the arcade games and all that good stuff. Because I heard a lot of it happening there too. I saw a lot of members continually talking to vendors, and it wasn't all based on something technical. It was, well, how many kids do you have? And then you make those connections, and then you remember each other, and it makes a huge difference. It helps grow sales for the vendor, and it helps connect the member to this brand, and it's extremely important. And it's always cool to see that, and you don't get that from virtual.
Right. And having like, as you mentioned earlier, been on that distributor vendor side, and the role you're in now. What kind of what different perspective do you have? Being able to now turn the tables almost and ask questions of those vendors. Do you how does that benefit you, having been there and then being able to attend these events from the perspective that you take now, as media?
It's different. It's very different. So when I worked in distribution, I worked with the integrators as their source of purchasing, but I also dealt with all the vendors and making sure that we were, making the right connections, the deals, the money, and the sales, all that stuff. And then going directly to the manufacturer side and dealing one-on-one, I got a good overlay of the land. Like what do they say at the master of all trades, but no, what is it? Jack of all trades, but master of none.
Yeah.
So I know just enough to be dangerous. And so I think that does help when I go into these events as press. I know what the vendor's talking about, but I also have enough, I'm still far away enough to understand what the member or the dealer is going to ask about. And I think that's my biggest takeaway is, and that's biggest thing, that's why I'm enjoying this side of the industry so much, is that I can feel both sides, and now I get to facilitate conversation with both sides. And I don't have to know exactly what the black box does anymore, which is kind of nice, even though I do, but
I gotcha. What have you, I mean, that also gives you the chance to kind of, have the vendor's ear, see sort of where things are heading, but also, be able, like you mentioned, be able to talk to the integrators and sort of, manage those conversations. What are, throughout the past couple of months as you've been doing this, what are some of the things that you've been noticing trends wise, in this space?
I think I've seen integrators as a whole being a lot more careful with their timelines, because we are having these supply and demand, these supply chain issues. First, it was the chips, and then it was getting stuff off the coast, and then it was, even if you were manufacturing all of your stuff here, everybody does get something from overseas. It's just the nature of our economy. It's just how things are. And so what I'm seeing people do is do their best to work around the issue. And there's a lot more planning involved than I think even before. It's, okay, how can we make this installation as good as possible without this one piece? And then we can add that one piece in whenever we need to, or just being able to say to a homeowner or a client, we just can't do this till XYZ date. But it's made our industry more, I don't even want to say creative, but definitely had to tap into their problem solving skills. The home theater right now has been a big deal. It has been a big deal since before the pandemic. But one of the biggest trends, I think, in the industry as a whole that I've seen is more of the outdoor living spaces. Outdoor TVs, we're literally we're pushing our home into our backyard. We needed that space during the pandemic to kind of have a break. We couldn't go to restaurants, so we took it outside, and that's still continuing. So we've seen a lot more of that. The sales of outdoor electronics, lighting, sound equipment, outdoor screens, it's just gone up dramatically over the last several years. And I think it's going to continue to, because, we decided, okay, this is a cool place. And the best part about the outdoor living space is that it's available at any price point. If you don't have any money, then you go and you buy a couple cool chairs and you get some Bluetooth speakers and some twinkly lights. But then as you get more money, you say, okay, I'm going to do this right, and get some cool outdoor speakers. And then you're like, okay, but let me take those twinkly lights and let me go ahead and make them a little bit cooler. And when I say, okay, Alexa, they turn on. And then you go a little bit further and you get that screen. And the next thing you know, you've got a whole automated system outside that when you blink, the lights turn on. It's
funny.
It's a really cool thing.
It's funny how it adds up.
It is.
I feel like you're talking about my life.
Right. But it's neat because it's not a space that is exclusive to anyone. Right. When it comes to like these beautiful home theaters, that's not available to everyone at every price point for the most part. Like, everybody can put a TV and put some speakers in, but the outdoor living space is literally accessible at any price point, any budget. And it doesn't matter how little or big your backyard is. You can even turn your patio into an outdoor living space now. And that's been a lot of fun to watch. And I think that the integrators have really enjoyed learning these new lighting controls for the outside and getting to do something a little bit. It's just fun. It's fun for everybody.
It's kind of, as you're talking about it, the thing I sort of noticed there is that and this is not to downplay what a home theater is, but like if you think about it, traditionally it's 4 walls, a ceiling, a screen in front of you, some seating, and it's not to call it cookie cutter, but it can be kind of cookie cutter. You make some tweaks here and there, but as soon as you take that outside the home and you think about all the different shapes and sizes of backyards and challenges that the landscape may provide, or obstacles that an integrator has to overcome, it kind of lets them be creative too. Well, you get outside of those 4 walls.
I have to agree to disagree because I'm a home theater geek. But I get what you're saying is that there is more flexibility in what you do outside, and literally taking whatever is leading up to your outdoor space. If it's your living room, and you can just keep the flow going. It's a whole different kind of creativity. Because you're right, when you do a home theater, you have these walls. Now, granted, you can do the coolest stuff on the ceilings and on the walls and your acoustic panels and whatever
Yep.
you have in your rack, and there's all kinds of cool screens and seating options. I mean, I could go on forever. I really have an issue with this, but the fact that you can almost seamlessly take whatever you have happening in the rest of your home and just kind of seamlessly flow it outside is something that I think is really cool.
So what where obviously outdoor is a big opportunity, for integrators in this space, and we've seen that play out. And I mean, it's kind of funny, the demand goes up obviously, and then you have the supply chain challenges. Those are kind of creating a perfect storm in that regard.
Right.
But what other opportunities are out there that you've noticed, for the custom integrator, today, as consumers sort of their habits change? Obviously, we're staying at home more, and but we are getting back out into the world and reacquainting ourselves with our neighbors and colleagues. So what are the areas that, as you look to the back half of this year? Crazy 22 is almost half done, isn't it? I mean, as we're talking here, I slow down a little bit, right?
Right?
pump the brakes a little bit, Mother Nature.
But
what's out there that they could be looking for as a way to sort of, not that they need help jumpstarting business, but maybe a different area.
Value.
Yeah, exactly.
So I've seen a lot of growth in lighting and lighting control. It's always been a part of the home automation and integration, but now it seems like it's actually more of a focal point. Whether you're lighting inside of a home and they have artwork, or whether you're lighting strategically outside to highlight the architecture or your landscaping, and even inside when you have different types of lighting based on mood, based on how bright or how was it soft or yellow. There's all kinds of different opportunities for light now, and since we've had this time to really look at wellness, Arcadian, is it Arcadian rhythms? What is it?
Circadian.
I'm sorry.
Yep. No.
I was close though. Yeah. So that's become a bigger deal in lighting, and knowing what type of light settings you want to have in your bedroom at night. So there's all kinds of cool things, and so that's been one of the most glaring things I've seen in the last couple of years, and probably will continue to see grow. In addition, more AV distributors are carrying lighting design. When I worked in distribution, we didn't really have a lot of lighting products. We had a couple things here and there, but for the most part, that was a whole separate thing that a whole separate industry that came in. But now, that's really common and becoming more and more common with AV distributors. So I don't know. I think that's probably the biggest change I've seen, and the one that I think is going to continue to grow.
Whoever can figure out how to get those lights to also, distribute some vitamin D as well, like that.
They do have those.
They do. Okay.
They do have those.
All right.
Now it's called a grow light.
There you go.
So you can just sit underneath, that light with, your herbs growing on your counter, your basil, just get some extra sun. Yeah.
Do they also offer sun tanning quality as well, those lights? Can I sit under it and get darker?
Probably not, but that's what tanning beds are for. And if you are really overexcited, I'm sure we can figure out a way to get those bulbs in your ceiling.
There we go. I don't know if that's the safest thing. Someone may.
Probably not. It might be a fire hazard. I'm not sure.
We won't test that out. We'll let someone in a lab somewhere figure that out.
We'll just go outside every couple hours.
No, that is that's awesome. So what we'll kind of close it out. What have you been writing about? And I'm sure all of these things kind of come together, and you could answer it that way. But what have you been writing about for connected design, and what sort of things have grabbed your attention of late that you've been having fun sort of covering in this space?
So so our summer issue is primarily what we're working on right now. And so we are focused on the outdoor space, but we've been working on some really cool stuff, and we enjoy covering a wide variety of stuff because, we deal with not only with the integrators, but we want to reach the builders, the architects, the interior designers. So we've kind of tried to have our hands everywhere. It's been a lot of fun to do that and see what's trending with interior designers that the integrators then kind of have to work with. That's really neat, but we have some really cool stuff coming up for our summer issue. And we're trying to do some stuff, some marine type stuff, some marine installations. And we really are, like I said, we've been focusing on that outdoor. But one of the things we've been covering a lot, which is why I mentioned it, was the lighting and seeing that everywhere. Also, I've been kind of trying to write a little bit more and push a little bit more about the security aspect, because security is part of the smart home too, part of the connected home. And there's some really cool, really wonderful manufacturers out there right now that are wanting to, connect that bridge. There's just, I can think of a bunch that pop into my head. And there are some that are ready for the the Google and the voice activated stuff. And there are some that really want to be integrated into that total home control, which is really neat. So I'm kind of a security geek as well. We started working on that years ago, and I've always enjoyed that stuff. I like random stuff.
Hey, that's okay. There's nothing. That's what being sort of involved and ingrained with the tech community is all about. We're all a little geeky, we're all a little nerdy, and we like a little bit of everything. So
I have to say, the most fun thing to cover ever are these screens. Whether it's an LED panel, whether it's commercial, resi, whether it's an LED TV. Video amazes me, and I love to cover that stuff. And that's one of my favorite things was going to the Samsung Experience Center and standing in front of that $300,000.
Yeah, the micro LED, just seeing how customizable, and you could stand as far back and as you want, and obviously it's a big screen, but not until you're like within inches of it could you see the panels.
Until you were literally like within a foot, and honestly, even a little bit closer than that. It's and I didn't even see any seams until they turned it off. But that's just, maybe it's because I have such horrible eyesight. When I'm watching, I'm looking at the videos, I'm looking at the colors, and I love that type of stuff. So, and all the vendors that presented did such a great job and I tried to go to a lot of the sessions, and I tried to, be there for the lunches and the opening speeches and stuff, opening talks, and everybody was presenting something in a fresh way, and it didn't feel repeated. It didn't, and maybe they have done that spiel 700 times, but it felt like it was, we get bored easily, especially when somebody's speaking in a monotone voice, So it was really, everybody did such a great job. Yeah, the members weren't shy in asking questions, and I loved that.
No, that's awesome. And we appreciate, you being there in Dallas with us to experience that all was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to do it. And glad we got to, turn around on a Monday right after the event and get you, on the podcast to talk about it. So we,
awesome.
Appreciate your time and, appreciate your coverage and, look forward to connecting again soon down the line here. But
all right. And we're going to switch this up. I'm going to get you on one of my podcasts here soon too.
Hey, sounds good. I'm always up for it.
Thanks, Rob.
You got it.
Talk to you soon.
Awesome. And thanks again to Vanessa for being down there in Dallas with us for the HTSN CI Summit, and then B, turning around on a couple days notice to podcast with us and, like I said, recap her experience and share what she got out of, the HTSN Summit. So appreciate that. And of course, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we will catch you next time.